welcome to this brand new episode of Behind the Scenes, a show where we share a sneak peek of the latest Business Today magazine with all our viewers. I'm Sakshi Batra, and with me on the show, I have Mr. Alokesh Bhattacharyya, Managing Editor of the Business Today magazine. Also joining in with me is Vidya S. She's the Special Correspondent, and Ashish Rukhaiyar, Senior Associate Editor of the Business Today magazine. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for taking the time out. We are all going to be discussing the key stories that we will find in the latest issue of the Business Today magazine, and we all know that this is a special edition, the India's Best B Schools, which is a BT-MDRA survey. So Alokesh, let me start off with you. Talk to us about the significance of this issue and what the survey has found out in terms of the best B schools in India. Spill the beans, which has topped the charts.
Right. Thank you, Sakshi. So, this is one survey that we've been doing for very, very long, and more than 20 years. It has been one of our most popular issues of the year, simply because here we look at, people who are going to be managers in the future, the CEOs of the future, the business leaders of the future. And that is something that people who want to get into that kind of job want to know where to study, right, to get that kind of a career. There are a lot of stories, a lot of content, and the rankings are also there. And interestingly, the top 10, in fact, the top 11 institutes this year are the same as last year, right?
Okay.
Without any changes at all. Yeah, and which actually shows the consistency of their performance despite the changing environment. And the topper again this year is IIM Calcutta, right?
Okay.
And followed by IIM Ahmedabad, then IIM Bangalore, and then there is IIM Lucknow and SPJIMR of Mumbai at number 5.
Okay, so what are the factors that the survey has really considered to come out with these rankings? Has it changed over the years, or this time is it something different?
No, we want to keep it consistent because education doesn't change overnight. Right?
Yeah.
If you keep tweaking the survey every year, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't give us the insights. So we focus on more than 125 attributes. It's a really long questionnaire that the institutes have to fill. This time we've got about 280 of them participating in the survey, top institutes, right? And so it's quite a long process. It takes about 3 months. Take into account 5 or 6 main parameters. One is the living experience, like what is the infrastructure there, teaching infrastructure and other infrastructure. Then what is the learning experience in terms of what kind of faculty you have, what kind of learning tools you have. There's the placement experience, like how much are you able to place your students at the end of the course, right? And there is something called a future orientation, which is so very critical. How are you orienting your students for the future? What are the tools and the techniques and that you are using there, right? So these are the various aspects that are taken into account while doing the ranking. It is the most comprehensive ranking in the country.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. But what's also interesting to find out, and I'm curious to know that, is why do we have these top entrepreneurs on the cover this time? I mean, ranging from IFL Group, we have Nirmal Jain, we also have Sugar Cosmetics founder and CEO Vinita Singh, we also have Renew Power Chairman and CEO Suman Sinha as well, and we also have Sanjeev Biktandani, who's the founder and Executive Vice Chairman of InfoEdge. So help us with all of those details as to why are they on the cover.
The idea was to draw lessons from these superstars and find out what they learned in B school that helped them in their careers, and what they didn't learn that also helped them in their careers because they learned it on the job. So where are the gaps, right? And what are the things that people who will join now can expect? So it's kind of a mentoring kind of approach, right? Where we are bringing some of the really top executives who have passed out of India's top IIMs, and these are only from the top 3 IIMs, all 5 of them, and there are 2 more inside.
Yeah, absolutely. All of these learnings will be absolutely very, very important for all aspiring future leaders in India too. I'll come back to you, Alokesh, with some more questions, but let me now go across to Vidya, who's written some good stories right here, as always. So Vidya, help us with, some of the larger trends that you spotted in the management education this year.
So thanks, Sakshi. Thank you for having me over on your show. So one of the things that we've noticed is that a lot of digital disruptions, geopolitical instabilities, and supply chain challenges, and these things have become the order of the day, where in what is being referred to as a VUCA world, where VUCA stands for volatility, instability, complexity, and ambiguity. So, but, in such a situation, what is required of a manager these days is the agility or the ability to quickly adapt, not just adapt to fast changing situations and chaos and uncertainty around them, but also to come up with quick solutions with whatever available information and resources they have at that point in time. So this is what companies seem to require of managers these days. And that is what top B schools are aiming to prepare their students for as well. And apart from that, of course, we have the continuing focus on digital and sustainability and ESG related topics, which are finding appearance in an MBA curriculum in the form of courses and electives as well. But one thing to add over here is that these are all efforts by some of the top, the creme de la creme of the B schools that we have, among the thousands we have in the country. So if you look at the differences in the quality of what is being offered in some of the top B schools and some of the ones that are finishing off the list, the difference is very significant. So that goes to say how much of a catching up they have to do in terms of the quality of placements that they offer, in terms of the facilities that they offer in the education overall in the curriculum. And of course, amidst all of this is also the question about the relevance of 2-year-long MBA in a fast-changing world. Even globally speaking, this seems to be a question that seems to be ringing loud these days. So those are some of the trends that we've identified in the opening essay.
Absolutely. That's very, very interesting to note. Also, just like how Alokesh was pointing out, we were discussing why the top entrepreneurs on the cover as well. We have seen that the startup story in India has really gone through a whole lot of ups and slight downs in the last couple of years as well. You've written some fascinating stories around that in the last couple of issues too. But help me understand, what is the role of these top business schools in India in the Indian startup story?
Right. That's a fascinating thing, right? I mean, on the one hand, we have all these star entrepreneurs and CEOs coming out of the top B schools. But if you look at the larger startup story in India, a lot of them tend to be founders with engineering backgrounds and not so much management backgrounds. Although the second category actually is very well equipped in terms of the skill sets required to run a business on their own. If you look at, if you dig a little deeper to understand the reasons behind why this happens, is of course the age group which graduates at an MBA level compared to the age group that comes out of an engineering undergrad level. And also the fact that a lot of them have to take on hefty loans to fund these very expensive MBA education and the degrees that they get thereafter. So those are some of the factors which kind of decrease the risk-taking ability of the management graduates in our country. But there seems to be a lot of interest among the students, even in management education, to kind of look at ways of contributing to the startup space, even if not as founders. And these schools are doing their bit to kind of course correct and embrace entrepreneurship in their curriculum. Of course, again, this is something a lot of the top B schools are doing in terms of incubators, in terms of opening up the expertise and the management faculty that they have, in terms of mentors, and also in terms of tapping into their very rich alumni network, kind of to forge these investor founder connections. But given the span of the country and given how how many different kinds of problems we have in the country, the solutions are going to obviously come from different corners.
Ashish, let me come to you. Now, you've also written a very fascinating story right here, which comes right from the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. Help us understand, which I'm sure a lot of readers would be very, very interesting to know. How is the startup ecosystem really developing in Jammu and Kashmir?
Thank you, Sakshi, for having me on the show. It was really a very interesting story to do, because when we talk about Kashmir, what are the things that come to our mind? It's natural beauty, tourism, dry fruits, pashmina shawls. Nobody really talks about or thinks about startups. But the fact is that the region of Jammu and Kashmir has a very vibrant startup ecosystem. Now, if you look at just plain simple numbers, there would be around 1,800 registered startups in the region if you go by government data. Now, that's very small, very minuscule if you compare to a state like Maharashtra, which has more than 40,000 startups. But still, the numbers aside, there is a lot of buoyancy, vibrancy in the segment, because see, the fact is that most of these national players, your e-commerce, ride-hailing, food delivery majors have a very limited or maybe zero presence in the region. And that has opened up a huge opportunity for the local, the regional ventures. Now, most of the leading startups of the region are basically a replica of maybe say an Amazon or a Ola or a Flipkart or a Swiggy or a Zomato. We spoke to quite a few entrepreneurs from the region, and they all had big numbers to talk about. I mean, in terms of growth, there was a huge exponential growth if you see the last couple of years since they launched. Now, another thing that has really helped the region is the establishment of IT and IIM.
Well, absolutely. I'm sure a lot of viewers would be very encouraged, and readers also, to see from the troubled times how the state is really emerging as the startup hub right there. So very encouraging signs. But help us understand, what are the main challenges you've spotted that are being faced by the entrepreneurs in the region?
In terms of challenges, there are two key challenges that all the startups in the J&K region face. One is related to investments, funding, and the other is manpower. So if we talk about investments, as I said, Kashmir Angel Network was set up recently, but apart from that, there's hardly any local investment or funding support that these startups have got. We spoke to the startup entrepreneurs, and they said that if they go around, say, talking to, say, around 50 investors, only one may reluctantly say yes. He'll not be so very bullish, because, and the reasons that these investors cite is the scalability issue, the terrain of the region. They think that in terms of growth, the upside is capped. Plus, infrastructure in terms of internet breakdown. Internet is a very key resource for these startups, because they are all digital players. So that is also another concern. In terms of manpower also, that has also emerged as a big concern, because see, if you look at this whole Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, there is not a very vibrant private sector. So most of the young people move out of the region in search of jobs. So that leaves these startups are not able to get good kind of manpower that they need to expand.
All right, Alokesh, let me come back to you. Well, you just heard both Vidya and Ashish talk about their, stories that they've done for this issue, and you've read a whole lot of other stories as well. I want to understand from you, which one is your favorite among all of them in this issue?
This is Ashish's story in Kashmir. It's a wonderful story, and I'm telling you, and Sakshi, because you've also done some really good stories for the magazine yourself, right? The story by Ashish is not just another story. It's about a region that is so deeply disturbed, right? We are all aware of it. We don't want to go into the reasons and all that. This is not the forum. But the basic fact is, if there is a way that the youth of Kashmir can find a way out of, the violence and the despair for their future, then starting your own business is a good way to do it. Sure, there are struggles, but then startups struggle everywhere, right? I mean, right now, startups are struggling in every part of the country. And of course, there are other stories also. There's 2-3 things I've really found in the B School package, Sakshi, if you allow me just a minute, to explain. 2-3 stories I found really. One is what Vidya said about the engineers, right? Most startups, at least 60 to 70% of our startups are founded by engineers, which actually makes engineering a very attractive career option at this point, where it has been going down, for the past several years. People have been preferring the MBA.
It's quite interesting.
If I do an MBA, I'll get a better job, I'll get a high salary and all that. But buddy, you do an engineering from an IIT, you start your own company, make millions. If you can get it right, you get the right funding and all. Second thing, the really big trend is the online education of management. The transformation of online education in management over all these years. And I'm old enough to tell you this, that over the past 20-30 years that I have seen, and even before that, long distance education, correspondence courses were all looked down upon. Even now they're looked down upon. I've had discussions with company CEOs and executives who said that long distance education, we don't hire people, who are doing these courses. But that is changing. And that change has been brought about largely by the COVID-19 pandemic, because you couldn't go to thing. And the other thing is that the number of seats in the top management institutes is very limited.
Very few.
In relation to the number of people who want to do a top management course, right? So now even employers are looking at people who have both. If you have an IIM degree, and then you go and do a specialized course from a place like, one of the EdTech institutes, that actually gives you a far stronger opportunity in the market than you would otherwise have. These are two very, very strong trends that are emerging this year. And the other favorite story is a small B school which has participated in our survey for the first time. It's in Solan, Himachal Pradesh. It's the Faculty of Management Studies in the Shulini University over there. If not for anything, you go there for the view, right? But the institute is also good. It's in the top 100 of our rankings.
Well, I actually have to say that perhaps this issue has it all, starting from the top B schools to everything that you can imagine about the beauty that India has to offer as well, starting from Jammu and Kashmir to you're talking about, Himachal Pradesh as well. All of those things are so interesting and fascinating. And at the same time, how the amalgamation of both management and engineering comes together. All of that is so interesting for all the future leaders and aspiring leaders of tomorrow. This issue is a must read. Just like how Alokesh pointed out, I really hope and urge all our viewers to please go out there and grab this copy on stands. It has a whole lot of insights for you to really read and get in terms of what's really happening in the world of business schools as well. Thank you so much, all of you, for being with us on this show and helping us with all those insights. And congratulations for bringing out yet another, fascinating story and bunch of stories in this new issue. Thank you so much.